ఓం శ్రీ గురుభ్యో నమః. అందరికీ నమస్కారం. Our topic today is happiness, misery and bondage. What is it? See, the bondage is through body. Because of the body, there is bondage. That's what we are told. The body has got 5 doors of senses. So, whatever we perceive through senses becomes happiness or unhappiness or misery to us. So, how we are subject to bondage? With our idea that we get happiness through body is itself the bondage. You are not the body. So, when you identify yourself with the body through happiness, and you're also attracting the misery, because happiness and misery are two sides of the same coin. So, because of this unawareness, we feel that body is the bondage for us. But it is not the body which is bondage. As I already told earlier, it is the idea, it is the perception that we get happiness through body is the bondage. So, happiness and misery. Both, when you want happiness, misery follows. And misery is followed by happiness. So, this goes on. But the basic thing is, we want to embrace happiness always, and we want to avoid misery. There, the friction arises for a man. So, suppose happiness is given to us all the time, and we get bored and we feel bored with that continuous happiness. So, why? Why is it so? Because the mind, the human mind, when it knows a thing or feeling well, and it never relishes on the same thing again, it wants a new thing. So it begins to search for a new one to get the happiness, and new circumstances or new happenings, or whatever it is. So this is the, when it is continuous, you get bored. So then the misery. Misery, when it is continuous, naturally we feel depressed and frustrated. But our feeling is that if there is happiness, continuous happiness, we will be very joyful. So that's why we try to avoid misery. So, in seeking the happiness and avoiding the misery, our entire life activity depends on this basic thing, to get happiness and avoid suffering or misery. But when you contemplate in a spiritual angle, you can overcome the misery. And what is the path for overcoming the misery? There is only one path, that is, realize that happiness and misery are two sides of the same coin, and when happiness ends, misery enters, and when misery enters, happiness also follows. This is the basic thing. But what is the alchemy of transformation of misery into happiness? Now that is our main problem. How to do it? Happiness becomes misery after some time, as all we know. But how the misery turns into happiness? What is the alchemy of that transformation? We are not aware of it. See, acceptance of misery, acceptance of suffering, acceptance of whatever happens is the alchemy of transformation of misery into happiness in the human nature. Because we resist, because we reject the misery, it becomes painful. For example, even happiness also, it's a kind of it's a form of a habit. See, when you are served the coffee for the first time, it tastes bitter. So the elders say, drink it and you get accustomed to it. That's how, even though so many things are better in the world, but we get accustomed to it as a matter of habit. And we feel that is the happiness. So we do this kind of deriving happiness from the better things also. But the art of living is to convert the misery into happiness. You can do it only by way of accepting it joyfully, realizing that the misery also becomes happiness. As happiness becomes misery, misery also becomes happiness subsequently. So with this realization and with this awareness, if total acceptance of misery, then it turns into happiness. This is one aspect of transforming the misery into happiness. Then the next point is why we want a change, either from happiness to misery or misery to happiness. What necessitates the change? The change is human nature. It's a part of evolution. See, a child is given toys in his childhood. As he grows, the same toys he dislikes, he avoids, he doesn't relish anymore when he grows up. So why? Because his consciousness is growing. Because of that, he cannot relish anymore the toys. So he wants new toys. So new toys are given. he plays it with for some time. Again new toys. So in the childhood, in the young age, in the middle age, in the old age, different kinds of toys. We are attracted to different kinds of toys, and for some time we play with it, and again we discard them, we dislike them. Any kind of toys in the form of relationships, all that. So when you realize this changing of toys, I have changed number of times and I have gained many experiences, but toys only change, and happiness and misery, their levels are equal at all times. So then you dwell into another dimension beyond happiness and misery. That dimension is called contentment. You reach that state of contentment. You feel that by you already indulged in playing with the toys. Now you are above it. You got it, that tendency of indulgence, you got it purified by realizing the fact that whatever toys, whether new or old, one day we have to discard them because they give both happiness and misery, and they will not be the same at all times. So you overcome that kind of indulgence with the purification of this kind of contemplation. Any toy, it gives both happiness and misery. So you have overcome the state of that happiness and the state of that suffering, because you know and you realize yourself. So this is the best alchemy available to human nature, to convert the misery into happiness. When you become a master of converting this misery into happiness by this alchemy of total acceptance of the misery, and when you become happy after realizing this fact, and whatever this happiness which you have derived by realization of this truth, it will never fade. It never become misery at any point of time in your life. You always dwell in that awareness and in that wisdom, overcoming the happiness and misery, and both will not have any effect on your being. So the key for transforming the misery into happiness is the total acceptance of both misery as well as happiness. So Thank you.